It's the P.M.P. I promised to start the show at a slightly faster pace than what Celtic's first half was today, because that was slow and tedious. But it's never the case on the bus. When you get on the bus, you cause no fuss. And we will have a bit of a laugh, I'm sure, this afternoon. We have decided to upgrade the team lineup. So it's not just me and Terry bickering like two spoilt Waynes. We've added a bit of mild-mannered reasoning to the team today, and that comes in the shape and the form of Phil McGinley. Welcome aboard the P.M.P. bus, Phil. Not done this in a while, son.
I know. You and I have been on a show in a while. In fact, you mean Terry? It's been quite a while.
You've always got a fucking quiz in your back pocket.
Well, yeah, I'm one to be avoided, definitely. But I'm the mediator today, as you said. You two bickering. I'm the referee, essentially, today. So I'm just going to keep it clean between the two of you.
We had to do that. We had to get someone in to tell me.
I don't get this whole narrative around bickering. I don't get it at all.
To be fair, it's
of course you don't. See, you're disagreeing already. There he started already. Fucking disagreeing straight away. Terry, what's happening, big boy? Good weekend?
Last weekend, I loved it. Brilliant. Probably still not even right yet. No, good time. I suppose.
Good.
I suppose just the match. The match was dreadful, and we started to just see a repeat of last week in the first half today. I'm just over the moon that we were able to turn it around in the second half, and it was quite enjoyable actually. The last 25 minutes when it started to work properly, it was enjoyable. But if I look at some of the stuff I've written down on my page here, I actually feel bad about saying so. I've actually written down the game is over for Joe Hart. Can never play for Celtic again. That's what I wrote at half-time. That's what I wrote for half-time. Then he pulls out a worldie at the end. I've written at the top, if this was Neil Lennon's team, we'd be calling for his head.
No, definitely. But we will get into all that. We'll do all that good stuff first, and then we will crack on. We'll start with the first half. Then we'll talk about Brendan's attitude to said first half after the game. And then we'll go into that better second half that we've seen. Bit of structure and everything for you there. So we're moving up the world. Anyway, all that good stuff means do give us a wee like, give us a share. As always, slag the hair. If you want to hit the subscribe button, do it now. And make sure you hit that bell. And every time the bus comes to pick you up, you are made aware of it in advance. If you want to become a Bhoycie Bus member, the content's always free. It's $1.99 a month. It's just because we dedicate a lot of time. And it helps keeps the wheels on the road with subscriptions, etc. Bhoycie Bus members like Seamus Weatherall, like Jim Dolan, like San Fran Celtic, like 420 somewhere, like Pam, like Ali, like D-Mac, Jim C, have I said him? Martin K, Patrick McLaughlin, they're everywhere. Big thank you to you all. Hill Times 2, Scott Cameron, fucking hell. Loads in there today, loads of you. So big thank you to you all. And like I said, the content does remain free. Craig A just sneaking in as a member as well, right at the end there. Good to have you on the bus. Also, good to have all you on. 116 of you are there. I thought it was going to take, Terry, 116 minutes for Celtic to get a goal today based on that first half. It was exactly, mate, what I expected it to be. That first half was why I wasn't even looking forward to the game today. I was dreading it. I was like, fuck's sake, it's at 12 o'clock as well. It's just a pain in the ass. I didn't want to watch it because I knew what was going to be served up. If anything, it was worse than what I was expecting, to be honest, that first half. It was so pedestrian, so slow. Craig Levein lined up the team for St Johnstone exactly as we knew Craig Levein would line up a team. I felt Brendan kind of did the same, though. I think we were very, very predictable in our methods and our ideas. And see, to be perfectly honest with you, I didn't think St Johnstone had to go to any great length or shakes to kind of nullify Celtic in that first half. For us, if we didn't get out of first gear, I think it would be a wee bit misleading to say St Johnstone got out of first gear. And by half-time, they had the 1-0 lead, Terry. That concerns me.
I think, Bhoycie, that sometimes we talk about these teams sitting in and stifling Celtic, and it wasn't even like that. St Johnstone were comfortable in the first half and would probably value to go in 1-0 up front. And what I always have this sort of sixth sense that I feel Celtic are going to score. And to be honest, I didn't feel it today. I'm sitting at half-time thinking, I just cannot see us getting 2 goals here. And whereas you were sort of expecting this performance, I wasn't. I was expecting a reaction to the lethargy that we watched last week. And I just didn't think it could be as bad again. And it probably wasn't. It was probably worse. It was absolutely awful in that first half. And like I say, the things that I was writing down was, if this was Neil Lennon's team, can you imagine how people would be reacting? They'd be wanting them out. If that's what you were getting served up and Lenny was in charge. And I think we're delighted to have Brendan back, and we know what we've got in terms of his ability as a manager. But if you took the name Brendan Rodgers away and put another name in, and we critique the performances that we've seen this season, I think you would look at them slightly differently. I mean, look at the lineup. The lineup was quite predictable as well. The defence picks itself, obviously, at the minute. Again, no Lagerbielke or Nawrocki to be seen anywhere, which has to be a concern.
Talk to me about that, because obviously we've seen Nat Phillips a wee bit, Terry, and from what we've seen so far, he's been okay. He's a loan signing, he's been okay. But we're not here to develop our loan signings unless they're going to be, players that are signing on for the long term at Celtic.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any indication or look that Nat Phillips, he's not even on a season-long loan. His loan's up in a month's time.
He'll be gone.
And if he'll be, well, let's go with that attitude then. He'll be gone. So surely it's our job to then, when we've invested, I don't know, between the two of them, let's say £7.5 million, something like that. Surely then there's a responsibility to be having them above someone who leaves the club in a month's time anyway, having made no real impact in his wee spell here anyway. Surely those two have got to be, at least one of them anyway, on the bench ahead of a Nat Phillips. And if needed to be called upon, we get the defensive cover we need coming on, and also we get their education still progressing and their development still sort of fluid, because having both of them looked like they were going to be threatening the first team role, to now be completely out the squad, that almost mirrors the stop-start nature that we seem to have done with a lot of our youth players and led to them leaving. Or is it just purely a case of they've thrown just so much shite basically at a wall and hope it's stuck, that a lot of these guys that have been brought in this summer have really been underwhelming to the manager?
It's a surprise, and especially, I suppose, around Nawrocki. And I suppose it is possible that there might still be some kind of lingering niggles in terms of injuries. But the last time Lagerbielke was seen, he was playing in a testimonial in front of Rab Douglas a couple of weeks ago. So I know Scales has kind of made that jersey his own, but you would have expected, when fit, those two guys to start filtering back into the squad again. And for whatever reason, it hasn't happened. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in January. I can't see any scenario where Nat Phillips stays, or either party would want him to stay, because I'd imagine we're paying a pretty penny for him. He's not getting game time. His club would want him to be out somewhere where he's getting game time. So I don't see any scenario. We're out of Europe. There's no reason to keep him around beyond the end of this month. But it'll be interesting to then see if one or both of those summer signing centre backs, and Nawrocki was definitely intended to be first choice alongside Carter Vickers. And I mean, we didn't get to see very much of him. He looked reasonably competent. So I'm kind of surprised that he hasn't found his way back in again. Stephen Welsh to add to that as well. Kobayashi will probably not see again either. But going back to the lineup today, then the midfield, you've obviously got O'Reilly and McGregor, and then it's this sort of musical chairs between Home, Turnbull, and Bernardo. And Turnbull got the nod today and has been typical with all three of those players. When they've been given the opportunity to start, they haven't done it. When they've come on late in games, they've looked good. But the bit that I can't get my head around is Paulo Bernardo. He's playing in the Champions League, and then he just disappears till the next Champions League game. And
Stop, start.
Well, if he's deemed good enough to play in the Champions League games, surely he's deemed good enough to play in SPL games. Or is there some... I can't envisage that we've agreed to something in a contract that says he has to play in Champions League games. That would just be ridiculous. But I just can't work that one out. How he's
I know what you mean.
How he's got picked for those games, and then you don't see him again till the next Champions League game. And Yang got a stay of execution after a poor performance last week. Palma found his way back in a game, which you would have expected, and Kyogo through the middle. So that the lineup probably was roughly what we would have expected. For some strange reason, I thought Mikey Johnson might get a start today, and I think it's more a process of elimination as to who out of the wingers was playing the least bad. And Mikey Johnson, to his credit, and he's much maligned, and I've criticised him, and I think he's become a bit of a.
It's almost parody now. It's a bit of a go-to thing for the fans. I mean,
in his games that he's come on, he definitely has tried. He has tried and gave it absolutely everything. And to be fair to him today, I think he made a difference. Him, along with O, who's another one that gets criticism. I thought both of those guys turned that game for us today, and both of them were involved in the goals in different ways. All three of them.
Good points made by Terry there, Phil, with regards to the first half. Obviously, a big sort of deeper look there at the selection and the potential reasons for it. I think the other thing as well is the actual tempo of the team, regardless who we've went for, it just wasn't there, big man. What was that? What was your takeaway from when you're watching the game and you're expecting, this was only a few weeks ago, remember, we battered Aberdeen 6-0, and I don't want to these all to get clipped together, not that anyone would be that sad to do that for the bus, but I was literally saying, look at the attitude of this team, because we were closing down the 90-plus 6th minute. We were still closing down in packs the Aberdeen defence, and they had the ball at their feet. I just don't know how that doesn't then kickstart or sort of become the norm. Today, it was all standoffish. If you've seen Kyogo press, no one was following, and it just was all disjointed. There'd be a one-time pass played. The other boy's not made the run that one's expected him to when he's played the pass. Everything was misjointed. It was slow. You see the word now that's getting used very often as the horseshoe passing. I don't know if you've seen that doing the rounds a wee bit now. Horseshoe passing, they just going sort of round from left to right.
Mm-hmm.
Try and put your finger on. Firstly, Rodgers thinking behind that team, because yes, you can also accept that it does look like it's going to be a slower side that are playing when you see the lineup. But why are they starting with such a poor tempo? The zip on the ball doesn't change no matter who's playing the pass, whether they can run it 2 mile an hour or 200 mile an hour. There was a lack of, impetus in the team. I just can't work out why.
Well, we was mentioning there about how Bernardo's career's been a bit stop-start so far at Celtic. I think the whole team this season's been stop-start. Every time we get like a really positive result, you think, oh, this is it. Because I'm not going to lie, it hasn't been glittering all season. And it's just been little drips and drabs where you go, oh, this now we've arrived. After Ibrox, we felt like that would really kick us on. And then the results, we had like a 0-0 draw after Hibs not long after that. I think it was actually the Aberdeen result came after getting battered off Atletico, and then we fought up on draw. So it just feels like it's, it's just the way the season's going. It's just we can't seem to get consistency. Yeah, we're still getting results. We are still top of the league, still well clear at the top, but the football is just, it's been turgid at times, and I can't, is Brendan just being a bit too stubborn with, what is it, trying to implement his style on these players? Because interestingly enough, and I think there has to be some food for thought here, the tweaks that he made in the second half, he's got to look at some of these players that did come on and what they did and changes in the shape. And maybe it is a case that he needs to open his mind a little bit here rather than being so, 4-2-3-1 seems to be his go-to formation. That seems to be his thing. And it's like, maybe he needs to, branch out a wee bit. So when O came on, right to highlight it, I thought he did make a massive difference. So maybe today, going forward, because we're going into this Christmas period now especially, with the fixtures coming thick and fast, we're going to have to chop and change a lot of things. I don't think you can just play the same team and the same tactics. I mean, the next game we've got is Hibs, another team that's taking points off us. So they'll be looking to try and repeat that on Wednesday night. So you'd like to think that, Brendan will look at that performance today after the changes he made and will, maybe it's a case of, we talk about horses for courses and stuff like that. Maybe he's got to start doing that a bit more, because...
Sorry, I was just watching Terry just neck half that pint in one feel sip there. Trying not to laugh. Sorry, Phil.
No, it's all right. But no, maybe Brendan's been a bit more like, no, we're just going to keep playing the same way. Maybe he needs to adapt now to who we're playing against rather than we're just going to keep going with the same system again and again because we need something to spark it life. I was talking about the Sunday Blether this morning, mentioned it on Friday night. Also, we've got the January window coming up. transfer window, but I'm trying not to get too excited. We can all see that this team needs massive reinvigoration, but to hell we try to predict right now what the next move is going to be in the January window, what we're going to actually do. Every one of us can see it, that we need to reinvigorate this team somehow, and we need to get through to January with maximum points, but that's a bridge we'll cross when we come to it. I suppose we'll deal with that headache when we get there, but right now they do need some kind of massive invigoration, no doubt.
Well, the concern I've got, Terry, is, I memean, what's the pep talk like? Is there a demeanour that's coming across of just too much Zen-like attitudes at Celtic? You know, I don't, it doesn't feel like the team have came up like they've had an old school sort of G-up team talk, Terry, that, you know, Martin would have been famous for back in the day. I'm sure Lenny gave quite a few. They come out and they just seem, ironically, the word is passive. But I mean passive in their mentality, not just passive with their sideways passing. I mean, it's like it takes to go a goal behind, or it took an angry Brendan at half-time to sort of kickstart get them into gear, just get them refocused. I don't get, I mean, Brendan spoke, and we'll go on to that now. I mean, his anger at full-time, Terry, about the first half. And he reminded people, these are the standards that Celtic have held, and they've held for a hell of a long time, or years and years, he said, you know. And today was a reminder that when we fall below them, there are good enough managers and good enough teams in this league that will make you pay for it, and will be well enough organised to deal with that if you've not got the right mentality going into the game. He also said it was the angriest he'd been in his whole career, I believe he said that, didn't he? Mm-hmm. Angriest ever at half-time. That's saying something. That's pretty damning. He said he'd only took off one player. I think he was alluding to the fact he could have took off more than one, and it wouldn't have been a problem. And then I don't remember this bit. I'm going off a tweet that I seen, something along the lines of threw Joe Hart under the bus, which I couldn't quite comment on. But
I've got it written down, Russell. I've got
what did he say?
Written down. So he talked about the goal that we lost, and he said, because he asked, do you think it was a foul? He said, there's no foul, we were soft. And then he talked about how they've worked on those types of goals in training. He's essentially, because that's the third time we've lost a goal at a corner where they've crowded us out. Motherwell last week, Ross County in the first day of the season, and today. And he basically alluded to they are working on this, and obviously it's going in one ear and out the other. Is what he's basically saying with Joe Hart, essentially.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
Let's
Jerry, I'm glad the manager was angry.
Look at that goal then, Bhoycie, because that's when I've decided I've seen enough. I've seen enough of Joe Hart. That goal today and the goal last week, where he's doing star jumps nowhere near the ball or anything like that. There was also a goal, the first goal away in Spain against Atletico, where he comes out like Superman to try and paw a ball away. I know he's made a save at the end that has got us the points, and I'm absolutely delighted about that. But this journey with Joe Hart is now finished. It has to finish. This has to be addressed in January. We can't go on watching this guy embarrass himself. That's the only way I can put it. I know he's made a save at the end, and I do take that on board. But it's now got to the point where it's every game, and I just don't want to watch it anymore. We need a goalkeeper we can rely on. Am I being too critical?
Phil, on the goalkeeper, Joe Hart was an area I'd said on the bus after season 1 of Postecoglou I would have strengthened. After season 1, I felt that was an area where he'd came in and been a massive part of, for whatever reason, the team's experience that was lacking, he was making a hell of a lot up for. He had the odd good save, but I mean, I thought he was pretty routine in terms of what he did as a Celtic goalkeeper. There was nothing special, there was no frills, but he was bringing a hell of a lot off the park to the environment, and I thought that was crucial in us winning that week. By season 3, the team's got to keep evolving, not just keep going, well, that'll do there, and I think Joe Hart will do for this season, not because his Champions League record's got any better. Again, there's a bucket load of goals conceded, not all his fault, admittedly. But at this point in time, he's a goalkeeper that was past the sell-by date when we signed him, but fitted at purpose and fitted what we needed in terms of the off-field aspect as much as the on-field. Now, I mean, you've just got to watch what's happening in front of you and just accept that there has to be a better goalkeeper that Celtic could have. And I think we'd hoped it was going to be Siegrist last summer. It turns out that was a signing Ange didn't make. Ange had absolutely no intention of playing Benjamin Siegrist at any point. That was not his guy. And I don't think he'd asked for him either. I think he was a free transfer from another SPFL club that looked like we've been busy again and did have a decent reputation in Scotland at the time, but not one that they'd run past the manager. Heart's not had any real competition since they took over. They also gave Scott Bain a new deal. Again, we understand that was behind Postecoglou's back and not a decision that Ange was remotely involved in. That has led Joe Hart to be in a position where there was 2 goalies the manager didn't want and him. And he was always going to get picked for that reason. We need to strengthen that area sooner rather than later. Exactly. My frustration is if we do it in January, I still think he would probably do the job well enough between now and the end of the season, right? That's the reality. And I don't think the market's as good in January to get more in. But why wasn't it addressed in the summer? That's what fucks me off the most. Anyone could see. Now, remember when Brendan first got the job? Let's look at him and his role in this. When he first got the job, his honestly, one of his first signings was Doris de Vries. This was based on a Craig Gordon who was Scotland's number 1. Shot stopping was being absolutely outstanding. The odd mistake, of course, but all goalkeepers will. And he was replaced by a 35, 36-year-old, 36, I think he was born in 1980. So he was 36. But I think he was 35, 36 when he signed for us. And it was all based on what he could do with the ball at his feet. So if, like you were saying earlier, in the last time you spoke, you said, well, we know Brendan likes the 4-2-3-1. See if Brendan still likes the same style of football all the time. And he's playing like he's got his own mindset. How has he changed so much with the goalkeeper one? Because if he identified a 32, 33-year-old Craig Gordon when he first came in as being a weak link in the team and one he needed to instantly address, whereas I think a lot of our eyebrows raised, then a Joe Hart who's nowhere near as good a shot stopper, does let in too many goals for crosses, and is just as bad with his feet, he doesn't identify this time around. Is that another example of a manager who, when he first came in, just seemed to have a bit more backbone and poise, and this time around has just been a wee bit Brendan light?
Could very well be. Now, why did Joe Hart get exiled from Manchester City originally when Pep Guardiola came in? Because he wasn't good with his feet. So this isn't a new thing that we've discovered with Joe Hart. There's a word that I have I've used before to describe his signing, and again, I think it's relevant here. He was a stopgap signing. He was a stopgap essentially because we needed to address that goalkeeper. We had just lost to Hearts in Ange Postecoglou's first competitive game or first league game of the season. There was a lot of uproar with how slow the transfers had been that summer. Scott Bain had started. He was left wanting at the goal that Hearts scored that night. And the next day we went out and signed James McCarthy and Joe Hart as basically just to get some people in to sort of get the fans back on side. Joe Hart was a stopgap signing that worked out. James McCarthy was very much the opposite. But that's the thing, he's still he was always going to be a short-term thing. But now we're in year number 3 of Joe Hart. And it's like, yeah, it's quite obvious. We could see it last season that we needed to look at improving the goalkeeper position. Say if you bring up Benjamin Siegrist there, I'm now asking what the hell was that signing all about, as many fans are asking, because it seems like there's no chance for the boy at all. And again, I feel like I'm saying it so many times. It shows every one of us can see this, and it's like, well, how come those that run the club can't seem to see these things? And it's like, well, we're all screaming out we definitely need to get a goalkeeper sorted, without a shadow of a doubt. I agree with what Terry said at the start of that first goal, regardless of the save at the end. And the save at the end was absolutely phenomenal. That's the duality of Celtic goalkeepers at times. You can have a game like that where, I mean, the second half he had nothing to do, but then he has to spring into action for that last gasp save. But yeah, you still can't excuse that goal. And it's the third time this season that we've seen that lost, that type of goal at a corner where you just crowd him. And he bumps into his own bloody player this time. It's not even like he's been crowded by St Johnstone, but he bumped into Greg Taylor. We definitely need to be looking at that position to get it improved somehow. And yeah, it goes back to, again, you're right about the Doris de Vries thing. You know, again, Brendan, wants to play out for the back and, make the goalkeeper a pivotal part of the team. And we've got a goalkeeper in there that, 6-7 years ago was forced out of Manchester City by Pep Guardiola for the exact same reason. You're not good with your feet. So it is quite baffling that on one hand, and I mentioned this on the Sunday Blether this morning, where things that Brendan is saying on screen do not correlate with what we're actually seeing happening on the pitch.
It's a great point.
He said so many things. He talked about, again, he didn't even start when I think he was asked about Joe Hart and like his future at the club, and he was very positive on him in the summer about, the role he's got to play and how much he admires him and fighting. But again, well, that doesn't correlate with your style, Brendan. So something just seems off right now. Again, with our recruitment and the words that are coming out of the club and those that run it, it's baffling to watch at times. It really is.
It's interesting, Terry, that when you look at that position, and I think you've had a wee bit of general agreement that the Joe Hart spell, if you want to call it that, is now the end is now probably past that point of his end. I think is, but not by a crazy amount either. I think we got away with it to an extent last year, but that's purely because I'm probably now part of the conditioned amount that I don't even see drastic improvements as something to strive for anymore. I think, if it's a wee bit less, a wee bit less than last season, a wee bit of a drop off for last season, that's okay, rather than always striving for improvement in every position possible and the team to improve as a whole because of that. With regards to somebody came in the chat and said, well, did we actually identify a goalkeeper, Livakovic? I genuinely look back at that now, and I think that was all Celtic probably thought they'd want to watch when they seen their name even being linked with him, because it gave them that excuse that they were like, we were in the race, but they went to Fenerbahce and we can't compete with them. I wonder how seriously they were in that race, and I think it's about time where Celtic, if they're going to identify a player, let's say they did identify him, then they would have known who else was in the mix, and they would have known that they wouldn't have been able to have gotten. So you would have a plan B for that. Or maybe we should just be looking at players that go all out and go and get someone that the manager identifies that is realistic. And maybe when you look back, you go, the Croatian number one with 40 odd caps or something like that, I think it is, was maybe unrealistic. What else have you got for me? They don't have nothing. Nothing. And that's another Champions League campaign done. And it feels like, when you look at the Champions League campaigns, they're just cast to the side. Like, it's another year of a Celtic fan's journey, a young Celtic fan's journey, not knowing what European football even means. And this is why I always go back to that phrase, conditioning. It's conditioning for young fans to be carrying on watching Celtic year after year, do fuck all in Europe because of positions like the goalkeeper not being even remotely strengthened properly, not being properly, being identified, and then that manager not supported. That's just what's happening right across that team, and that's why we don't make any impressions in Europe. And that's where the anger from the likes of my generation, our generation, because we were there for like Spfl and things like that, we still have that anger. Well, a lot of us do. The younger generation don't have the same because they don't know any different. They think this is just how it works. It's bullshit, Terry.
Bhoycie, surely we've been planning for what happens after Joe Hart from the moment we signed Joe Hart.
I'd have thought so.
Because we signed him at the end of his career. So there has to have been some kind of plan. There has to be names that are on a list. There has to be players that we are working towards. Now, it's just a gut feel, but I have a gut feel that we've been working on a goalkeeper during the summer, and for whatever reason, we haven't been able to get it done. I don't know if it's the guy that we just mentioned. I'm thinking no. I think our best chance here in terms of that position, and we've talked about it a few times before, is, and it's something that's worked before, is the Fraser Forster type signing. A goalkeeper who is good enough to play in the English Premiership, but is probably third choice at one of the clubs in that league, and therefore his game time is likely to be very restricted. And he comes to us for 18 months, 2 years, something along those lines. I think that's what we need to be. We need to. Are
you talking about Jack Butland?
No, but Jack Butland.
No, that was a joke.
Probably wasn't the worst signing that Rangers could have made.
I think it's that type of thing. I think it's that type of signing.
I think that's
what we're out of.
I think. Well, let's look at what's worked for us in terms of goalkeepers over the last 15, 20 years. It's been the Fraser Forster, the up and coming player from the English Premiership who is sat on a bench and can't get a game, but is good enough to play at that level and is then good enough to play for England, or it's the Polish goalkeeper approach, what we've gone down with Artur Boruc. So let's go back to the well. Let's go back to something that's worked for us. And there's enough people at the club involved in recruitment. We have to have been planning for life beyond Joe Hart. Surely we've got a list and we've been making inquiries around that list, and there has to be something that's ready to go either in January or in the summer, but probably should have been done last summer. I can only think something's happened, and we possibly thought something was going to happen and it didn't for whatever reason. I mean, going back to what Rodgers is saying and what's actually happening, it just, the mystery just grows and grows. So he said in the press conference before the game this weekend that when he came in, he had a look at the squad and he decided that he needed 4 players, 4 additions, 4 quality additions. Now, we talked about this towards the end of last season as to what we thought we needed during the summer, and it was 2, 3, 4 quality additions to the squad. So the manager's come in, he's had a look, he has seen that, but then what's happened is we've gone and brought in 9 players who are much of a muchness in terms of what we already had and don't come with any real pedigree. So,
and the one first team one out of that, Palma, is a downgrade on the one that you let go, sure.
Yeah. And it just doesn't add up. If he's come in and he has spoken, he's talked about how he's spoken to Dermot Desmond, the discussions around the meetings with Michael Nicholson. He's identified we need 4 quality players to come in. It just doesn't correlate to what actually happened in the summer. The two things don't add up. And he's mentioned then that there were deals. He's talked about how he makes the final decision on players, but then he talked about how there were already pre-organised deals with, I'm guessing that's the lads from Korea, Australia, and whatever. Those were probably happening before he came in. But could he have been stronger and just says, right, do you know what? Let's not do that. Let's do this. And now in one of the papers yesterday, I was talking about how he feels we need to bring in experience. It just sounds like some of the stuff that's coming out of his mouth and what's actually happening, there's no relationship between them at all. And if we know Brendan Rodgers from the first time around, he's really, really measured about what he says. But
this time he's flip-flopping, Terry.
Sometimes he's just saying things now and you're going, did he actually say that?
He's got to take responsibility for the window. And I was saying this before we came on to Phil. I think the anger you've seen there today has been a build-up of a guy that is realising he fucked up in the summer. Whether you like it or whether you don't, he went on the charm offensive. But by going on the charm offensive, he let that infiltrate his decision-making process on football matters, which he shouldn't have done. He should have been stronger. He said he was happy with the players brought in. He was delighted with the way Celtic... Remember, he says, since the last time I was here, the recruitment has improved. That's the first glaring thing he said. The recruitment department's much better. So you can't then come December having had some negative results in Europe, predictably, and having the odd negative result domestically, looking at the League Cup, the drop points in the league so far, and then suddenly go, well, I wanted 3 or 4 bits of quality then. That's what the team's missing. Well, that's not quite how you were coming. So to me, he's dancing to whatever the tune is at the time that he thinks will curry favour. And that fucking annoys me, Phil, because that's not the Brendan of old. That's then someone who's letting outside noise, as I say, influence his football decision-making processes, which I think are second to none still. I think he's a brilliant manager. See, when it comes to the football stuff, I would trust his judgment. I'd trust his eye for a player in the team, whether they're going to make it at Celtic or whether they're not. I would trust him to be someone who would be able to get the best out of someone that he thinks maybe is a rough diamond. And I think he's not been as involved as he would like to kid on in the players that have came in. He's not wanting to rock a boat. And now he looks a wee bit silly, in my opinion, after the event saying all this. Albeit, I thought the anger that he showed today was finally a not a wishy-washy piece that you could kind of dissect and go, well, that contradicts that. That was just black and white facts about something that the standards weren't good enough. Either or, there's no excuses for that, and it's the angriest he's ever been. That is important that he did that. But fucking hell, man. Like, I just don't think that this guy has done the summer well, and a board have almost teed it up perfectly. Let's get cynical about those bastards, because I've not done that yet today. And you look at what they've done. It's a perfect storm. Bring Brendan back. Make him the record-paid manager. Know that fans won't be happy. Go on, dare you to rock the boat. Here's another wee ditty for you. That's a bit harsh. Here's another player that you never asked for. Here's another player you never asked for. Go on, say something in public this time around. Remember, you're still the rat to many people. They had him cornered, and he didn't know what to do. Whereas I actually think, to be completely honest with you, he would have came out with a hell of a lot more respect if he had done something publicly like Ange did in his first ever summer, whilst everyone was undermining Ange, myself included, and thinking, what the fuck is this guy all about? And he actually came out and says, maybe I've not been forceful enough in my message to the board so far in getting new recruits in. We never had a moment like that for Brendan in the summer, and it's came home to roost. I think his frustration is a culmination of him doing a lot of self-reflecting, Phil. And I think that is deep down why now he's beginning to let it show, if you like.
I think there might be a chance that he's done a bit of underestimation of the competition in the Scottish Premier League. I think when he came back, remember when he spoke on the steps outside the stadium, and he said to the fans that had gathered, just saying, for those that don't believe me, I'll see you back here in May. Remember he said that line as well. And it seems like, the results are a bit stickier this time than what they were 5 or so years ago. Regards to people influence him, I agree with that. And again, it's that Brendan Light term that we've brought up a few times. And it's worrying because he seems like a very, confident in his own ability, essentially. He comes across that way. Again, there's nothing wrong with having an ego. You've got to have one if you're a football manager. But he's not being true to himself then if he is letting, whatever the current tune is, influence him. But yeah, he should have came out with these types of things. What we saw today, that interview, we should have seen a while ago. There's been a few bad performances this season where he could have easily applied that. But yeah, today, he's waited till December. I don't know if maybe it's because there's a transfer window looming and maybe he's trying to get the message across now. But again, I'd like to think he's been doing it sooner because we could identify all these problems months ago. Again, talk about things in the summer, talk about how we needed extra cover at striker. This morning on the Sunday Blether, we were talking about the forward planning for the January window with the striker because Kyogo and O are likely to be at the Asian Cup. They're likely to both go to that. So he'll miss we've got a game against St Mirren in Paisley just after the new year, just before the winter break. And it's a game that you can't just look at and go, we'll be fine without Kyogo.
Can we call for postponements on that, though, if we've got over 3 players away?
I think there is a rule there. There is some
we
kind
used
of
it before, did we not?
Oh, we might very well.
I think we did 2 years ago.
Rangers used it in some wee Diddy Cup whenever they were down the leagues.
I'm sure. I'm sure we exercised it. We pushed back a game because we had players there 2 years ago under Ange. I'm positive we did.
Do you think pride will get in the way though? During Celtic will be like, no, we don't want to be seen to be exploiting that. We're just going to play it anyway because we would need to literally announce a new striker on January the 1st.
Well, I think if that's the alternative, they would definitely go down the Liverpool route.
Well, yeah, I know.
Fucking hell.
It's not a game you could just write off. St Mirren, of course, does some problems recently. We've dropped points to St Johnstone and Hibs this season and Motherwell. So it's not a game that you can just look at and go, we'll get away with it without having any recognised striker. Don't know about that. Could be a bit of a problem. So we'd be literally relying on announcing a new player before we play them. And I don't have the trust in the board to do that. But yeah, Brendan again, he's just got to find his bollocks and stop being Brendan Light because it's definitely there. And I'm a huge Brendan Rodgers fan. I've been championing his name for long before he came back to the club. But I'm seeing it in front of my eyes right now, and I'm just like, there's some worrying signs there. There really is. He needs to really start being forceful. So hopefully something changes pretty soon.
What's your thoughts on that, Terry? Do see when we look at the overall recruitment, we're going to talk about the second half next, by the way. But Brendan's anger today, do you feel that that's been bubbling away, and then he's kind of that performance has been the sort of the final nail in the right. Someone has to start looking at what we're doing in the park with the same eyes as me and be able to get an agreement that this isn't good enough and who I've got to use and the tools at my disposal aren't good enough. And he's hammered the team more than talk about recruitment after the game today. But when you combine it with the last 3 or 4 press conferences, then that takeaway on the actual performance itself being so damning, obviously talking about the first half in isolation, I think that's him now putting the puzzle together for people to be able to read it. You were talking earlier about how everything he says is very, not contrived in a bad way, but it's very deliberate, shall we say. I think that's what I think he's done. He's known his performance is coming. And he knows he's probably got away with one today. So he goes, the best time to actually have a right pop at the players is after a win. But the performance was shit. Because it's clever that way to be able to do it then, because it doesn't look like excuses and you're just covering your own back. But he's also teed it up nicely over the last 3 or 4 weeks by talking about that, or 2 weeks, shall we say, talking about these 3 or 4 players that were needed and that they're going to be necessary for the team to progress. And he identified them in the summer that was what we needed for the squad, even though we signed 9 players and he said he was happy with them. Miss all that bit out, and he's basically been building up to saying this team isn't good enough, and then today the team wasn't good enough, and he's went right through them, but he's done it in the back of a win. We talk about this all the time on the bus. Sometimes a manager's strength, whether they're complaining about a referee or a team's performance or a sloppy mistake, it sounds better when it's on the back of a win. I think that works for him as well today. But if you're joining the puzzle that Brendan's, I think, laying out, it's quite clear that he's wanting far more autonomy this January. But notwithstanding that, I still hold him culpable for not finding his bollocks. And I kept calling for him to do that in the summer.
But if we as supporters join all the dots over the last few weeks with the little bits that have come out in the AGM, Rodgers' press conferences, now what we're expecting, or what when I join the dots on all of that, and when I put all that information into my head and process it, I'm now expecting us to go and upgrade in January. And I don't know if that's going to happen or not. But that's I think where the manager is trying to lead us to, and probably hoping that he can then lead the powers that be to that same place. But if we go into this window and we don't do anything, what does that say about the relationship between the manager and the people above him? Because on one hand, he's talked about, he's led us to believe we're gearing up for something, but we thought that during the summer.
The summer was a perfect opportunity. But there's never been a better opportunity.
Well, then there was the caveat: if it doesn't happen, if we can't do what we want to do in January, we'll roll it on to the next window. He did say that.
Keep getting rolled on. And do you know what's mad? Do you know what's fucking mad as well? Like, see in the summer there, like if they're talking about, and I think there is a quote that they've said, yeah, in fact, he did after the AGM. There's 73.2 million, but they said, but a lot of that's been eaten into with the recruits that we brought in the summer. So we're not going to be in as healthy a position next summer as what we were that one, unless they do sell another player for fuck knows how much. I don't know. But we'll build them up to 25 million again after we win the league and the Scottish Cup. I'm sure of that. Right, positive note. Sandwich Boy comes in. He obviously wasn't here at the start of the show, but we broke down what the structure was going to be. We're going to talk about the first half. We're going to talk about Brendan's rant about the first half. Then, Sandwich Boy, we were going to talk about the second half. So I appreciate you saying we're a fickle bunch, but sadly, if you've been on the bus on time, mate, you'd have known I'd structured it all out. But anyway, we'll get to the bit that you want to hear about. And that was a second half where incisive changes by Rodgers made all the fucking difference. I like Celtic to try. I would like Celtic, sorry. The idea of us playing 2 up top. I was asking for it under Ange. And I don't know if you're aware of this, right? Celtic by numbers, it's not my fucking type of thing, right? Not particularly enamored with the person who writes it either, but bye. But I did read one of his articles recently because it suited my argument, of course. So I was like, I'll have a bit of that. I'm a fickle fat bastard. I'm honest, if anything. And it was basically saying that the last 6 months of Ange and the first 5 months of Brendan are almost carbon copies. There's not much difference in the XG. All that. I was like, oh, XG. I love XG. Mad for the XG. But the chances created per match, very similar. This isn't a movie that's a brand new one from the Postecoglou era. It's the first 18 months. The better memories of Postecoglou we're contrasting with the early phases of the Brendan second term. It's not the reality. The last 6 months of Ange into this isn't actually that much of a drop-off, in my opinion.
Agreed. The beer was starting to go flat, Bhoycie, under Ange. We said it many a time, didn't we?
No, I wonder how long you've had that. I wonder how long you've had that saying written down for. You can tell he was dying. It's the only time he's interrupted me today.
It was a flat pint. It was turning into a flat pint.
It's all about opportunity, mate. It's all about opportunity. I love that. That was brilliant. Yeah, second half though today after that turgid first one, and do you know what? Brendan identifies where things are going wrong. He obviously, we just said that he'd spoke about how he could have, had he wanted to, made more than just the one change.
Yep.
He brings on Mikey Johnstone, the much maligned Mikey Johnstone you called him earlier, Terry. Do you know what? See, for whatever his lack of quality might be in his final ball and stuff, at least there's a final ball to comment on. He seems to be wanting time and again to ask at least like the basic questions he's sometimes asking of defence with, you know, some of his sort of floaty, wishy-washy crosses. I just think, oh, wow, that's not good. But he's asking questions nonetheless. And he did bring a direct approach to the team that was lacking in the first half. And there seemed to be more purpose in what he was trying to do. Then we see the two up front that I was talking about just a second ago. And you look at the difference it makes. O looks a far better player when he's playing with Kyogo. Kyogo's a wee bit off the money, but he's, you know, if anyone thinks his touches may be out, he's only had about 4 touches in the last 5 weeks. Of course, his touch is rusty. Do you know what I mean? Think about it. I've played more football than him. Do you know what I mean? The last few weeks. So he's, I can understand it from that point of view. It's a dynamic, though, Phil. I would like to see Celtic explore more often. Be a wee bit bolder. Don't be stuck in your ways. Mix things up a bit. Try 2 up top. And I thought, you know, we got our 3 goals in the second half. And there's a few in the live chat saying, you know what, the second half performance was good. It was actually a really good display. Yep. It's because you've came from the depths of that first half. You've had to try and like climb out of the early grave you dug yourself during that, where you're like, right, okay. And you're trying to motivate yourself for the second half. But in isolation, good half of football, good reactions for Rodgers, 3 goals for Celtic.
Without a doubt, I mean, his words at the end of the game, talking about the second half, as he said, you know, the first half, no intent, poor mentality, not too comfortable. The second half is more what I expect. And God, he wasn't wrong, because that was a great performance in the second half. It wasn't me. I say you can't obviously forget all of how bad the first half was, but you see what they're capable of, what they're actually, when they do get going, because it was all one-way traffic. It just kept building and building. And some of the play, I mean, I said it in the group chat, that second goal, see, when we began that move, I just had a feeling watching it. I felt something good's coming at the end of this, just the way we swept forward in numbers, all the one-touch passing in the build-up. And then Matt O'Reilly to just ping that right in the top corner. Absolutely phenomenal goal. And yeah, it was fantastic. You know, second half, it could be whatever we wanted it to be. You know, it was just building and building. I mean, 3-1 in the end probably flatters St Johnstone, because, yeah, they've, other than the goal that they scored and the chance right at the end that Joe Hart pulled off the save, yeah, in the second half, they were just camped in because we upped the intensity. So the players have got it in them there. And it's annoying that it's taken that scare at half-time to get them to react like that. That should have been how they set out from the very start, because we, and it used alluded to in P.M.P like last week, we've played ourselves into a title fight here. This game at the end of December, you know, this is going to be so crucial. We should be a lot further ahead than what we are. But we're in a position now where they could be breathing down our necks with like games in hand. So it's like we could, you know, we've not got this wrapped up just yet. So they've got it in them to obviously perform at that level, and that's what we need to be doing. Every game now needs to be treated like that. We need to come out and put performances like that. Because
I know you're saying that about them though, Phil, right? Yeah. But like, see, when I was watching us 1-0 down, I was like, the only manager shouting it more than Brendan is the Rangers boss, because he knows they'll fuck it up the more a little today.
Let's hope so.
Well, not now because we won, but if we drop points, the chances are that puts more pressure than I think they can handle. It's a bit like that, isn't it?
Well, they have shown in the past that they don't particularly like the pressure, so we'd like to think that it would cause them to crack a wee bit. But yeah, the moment we are in a point where if we can get that win at the end of December over them and give ourselves, the double figures lead over them, then things will feel a wee bit better. However, there is a caveat to that. Will that then prompt the board to go, we don't need to bother improving the team? We're miles ahead of them now. So it's like, again, I hate this reactive, not proactive approach that we seem to have. Whatever they're doing seems to affect what we do. It's like we should be just going out and making sure that we improve the team so that we never need to worry about them at all. But we'll cross that bridge at the end of December when we get to it. But as for today, the first half, terrible. Second half, pardon the pun, but the yin and the yang, essentially, it really was opposites, It was a phenomenal second half performance. It could have been whatever it wanted it to be. Yeah,
so bad it's good.
See that second goal. See that second goal that we've jumped to, and we'll rewind to the first one after this. But that second goal reminded me just a little tiny bit. Do you remember? It's my favourite goal under the Brendan Rodgers first era. It was at St Johnstone, wasn't it?
Yep.
Oh, the two Rabona passes.
Yes. We'll stick with the Rabona.
Mm-hmm. There was nothing like the same exuberance in this one, but this one did still start with us winning the ball at the back. I think it was Scales. Had a bit of a duel with the striker, and the ball made its way. And then it was just the one touch. Then when it got into, and I know Kyogo got the assist, but actually I thought Mikey Johnston's role was pivotal, as was O's, because O made a run that opened up space for Johnstone, who then made a flick, and it was just that sort of that goal was just okay. That's what we expected when Brendan came back. That's what we were looking for. Defense to attack, one touch, and then an absolutely sublime finish. And let's not lose sight of it. It took two absolutely magnificent goals for us to get our noses in front and get us the points today.
Moments of quality.
That one, moments of quality. And the amount of times he said quality, and the other ones that he likes to say are mentality and intensity. Anything with a TY at the end sounds brilliant from a Brendan accent type of thing. But quality, intensity.
That's good.
It's all about the supporters.
He loves that shit, doesn't he?
But
he does. That's so true.
How many times? Look at the state of the St Johnstone goal, right? That's a goal that you see Celtic conceding so many times. And Joe Hart wasn't the only one that was involved in that first goal. Matt O'Reilly could have done better. Taylor could have done better. But the buck stops with the keeper. Anything in the 6-yard box stops with him. That's his area. He needs to command it. But we don't normally see Celtic score goals of the quality of O'Reilly's finish and McGregor's finish. And let's rewind, Bhoycie, to a week ago when we were sat in your apartment, your penthouse apartment, and I was saying that I wanted the captain to step up whenever we got that second penalty, given our bad record.
Carry on. I'm happy for that myth to spread. My penthouse suite. Let's keep that rolling. That's good.
Given where we were at in that match with 5 minutes to go, an opportunity which should have been to seal the 3 points. We'd already missed a penalty. Our record in penalties is like 1 out of the last 30 we've scored or something. I wanted the captain to step up and take responsibility. I think he just done that today with that finish. That was a captain's finish. That was
talk to me about the celebration, Terry. I think of Brendan's anger animated sort of style of interview that he did after the game, talking about the first half, was a release of some sort of inward pressure that I think he's putting on himself. I thought McGregor's celebration kind of was similar. He was almost looking like he was confrontational to the fans, but trying to G them up sort of thing. Well, I think there was a bit of a release there that, fuck, I've been murdered recently. And God, I needed that as much as anyone. And then that's just that relief coming out. I thought there was a bit of that.
Aye, and McGregor did an interview. He got the Sky Man of the match, and he talked about Brendan's role at halftime. He dropped Brendan's role at halftime, but I'm probably going far too beyond. But I thought McGregor looked tired when he was in front of the Sky camera, and I've absolutely no doubt that.
No winner. He's played about 500 matches in the last 4 years.
I know, but I've absolutely no doubt that the way we've been playing, even though we're still top of the league, even though right as we sit right now, we're 11 points or 10 points clear or whatever it is, it probably has been playing on his mind. It probably, he is a Celtic boy, and his performance is probably quite rightly I've started to come into question. People have been saying, well, do you know what? Callum McGregor hasn't been at the brilliant best that we've seen him at for the last 7-8 years. And I just felt that one strike today, just that could just change everything. That could change everything for McGregor, could change everything for us. At that point, I didn't see any way we were going to leave there with 3 points until we got that goal. And I know we're talking about first half versus second half, but I actually think it was the first 3 quarters we were dreadful, and the last quarter we were good. Once we got that goal that he scored.
2/3. Going to go 2/3 with you. That's the
go
best.
You 2/3. And just to be awkward.
2/3. That's the best I can do. Philip DeMarco is worried about the extension. It's hooked round like a pin. It looks like it's, see the line like that cable. I'll try to point it up. Oh fuck! I can't work it.
Well,
up there anyway.
Marco, I did a full risk assessment when I was there last Saturday night.
I did a risk assessment. All right.
Signed off.
Yeah. But yeah, you're right. The moment sort of did seem to stimulate the team undeniably, but after that, the football was then. This is what I'm not getting. No, the intensity then seems to skyrocket. Everything seems to be more purposeful. I don't think it should take Callum McGregor scoring a goal for the same guys being able to play football in a different way. Like, they've got to motivate themselves. See, to be a real winner, that comes from within. And it's on McGregor, of course, because he's got the experience and he's part of the leadership group. He's the captain, of course, to sort of be a focal point of that. But guys need to dig deep themselves. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, no one wants to go to fucking McDermott Park, fucking -1 on an early December weekend. Do you know what I mean? At midday. I get that. But you're getting paid a fucking shitload to do this. And you're playing for one of the biggest clubs in the fucking world. Find some fucking mojo from minute one. That shouldn't need to be coached. And I shouldn't need Phil to have, this triggered it. And next week it'll be something else that triggered it. The fucking first whistle that goes off at kickoff time, they should fucking trigger it. It's time for get a grip of themselves as well. Do you know what I mean? Look at themselves in the mirror and go, how can we do that so badly for the first 45 minutes? How can we lead us up over the first 2/3? How can we let ourselves get to a stage where we're actually under the cosh and we're under massive amounts of pressure to dig something out? I'll tell you why, because you weren't switched on and you weren't up for it and you weren't motivated enough from minute one. It took far too long for that team to kick into gear. It took a rollicking for the manager. It took a magical moment for McGregor. And then they suddenly wake up to the challenge. Yeah. That's not going to work all season. No. There'll be more drop points if they keep up with that attitude. They have to fucking start looking at themselves and taking ownership and responsibility as well.
That's what they signed up for. This is what they signed that contract. They play for Celtic Football Club. This is it. And, at the end of the day, winning is the only option at Celtic. So I'm sorry if they don't particularly like going to McDermott Park in freezing cold conditions, but that's what you signed the contract for. This is who you're going to have to play against. Hey, but guess what? We've got 6 European games every year that we're guaranteed. We've also made a complete mess of as well. So it's like, well, the end of the day, this is all we've got left now on the table. So it's like this now at the end of the season. This is the type of teams we're going to have to play. So if it's a case of, they turn up and it takes them scoring a goal to get them motivated, then that ain't the attitude. It's like at the end of the day, the fans will quickly let you know that this isn't good enough. So they need to be switched on from the minute one. I say, especially now we're in an absolute jam-packed winter schedule now where we've got games just coming thick and fast. It's like, no, they need to be just making sure that they get these games, wrapped up as quickly as possible. It doesn't take the other team giving us a fright because it'll catch up to you eventually. Yeah, we have obviously navigated our way through these fixtures. We've had a lot of tough away games, which we've highlighted a few times on shows about the magical fixture computer and how it churned out all these hard away games for us in the first 11 and how like Hearts and Hibs back-to-back away, but we've managed to come through, stay top of the league. But there will be days where today, like we saw, it won't click. We might fall behind. But then we don't get an equaliser. We end up losing the game. Never mind scraping a point, which would be bad enough. But there will be days where it'll catch up to you eventually. I know there was last season, there was a few moments under Ange where I remember Dundee United got a late equaliser against us at Celtic Park. Then we scored another 2 with like minutes to go. And there was a belief in the team at that time where you're like, well, even though they've just equalised like 5 minutes to go, I'm still confident we'll make chances. But right now, if we were to lose, say, a late goal in one of these turgid affairs, would we? Do you think we could turn that around? It's like, no.
Or would it be a trigger?
But that late in the game, it's like, you know.
It's maddening it is.
Yeah.
And you've raised some great points there, Phil. I like that because what we've seen today, Terry, the good and the bad, the good, the bad, and the ugly, if we want to call it that, right? It won't always work that way. See if Celtic had been 3-0 down at half-time, and there was other moments that Johnstone had, I don't want to go too into, we would have been up shit creek. There's no way we're coming back for something like that. I think if we'd been 2-0 down, I wonder how low the heads would have been and whether we'd have been able to come back from it. But we do get the third goal, and it's that man, Jamesy Forrest. And when you're finishing the game with Mikey Johnstone and Jamesy Forrest, it's like Brendan never left. It's like, fucking hell. That's how good the recruitment's been in the few years he was away. That he finished his games in his second spell with Forrest and Johnstone the same way he was in like the likes of defeats at Ibrox and things like this. It was a brilliant goal. James Forrest did it was a bit of his inner Kyogo at Ibrox coming out there with the outside of the boot, kind of half volley. See, they did an angle of it, and the way he struck it, I went, oh, that reminds me of that. That was class. I mean, it's another season where he's got himself on the score sheet again, hasn't he? I think he's already scored one this season, to be fair. But
Ross County.
That's right. What is he up to? 14 seasons in a row?
14 or 15, it's one of them, yeah.
14 or 15 in a row. I can see why Rodgers is using him as a weapon. I can see why he's using Mikey Johnstone as a weapon. I don't agree with the fact we have to, but considering where we are and considering the injuries, that's what we've got to kind of do. And I can see why both of them, particularly Johnstone probably after today, to be honest with you, is in with a chance of starting the next game. But James Forrest with that goal as well has every right. Not that I think he would. I don't know. I don't know if he can reach the door handle, but I don't know. I can't imagine him knocking a door very loudly. I think he'd maybe tap it with one finger and then run. But he's got every right to go, look, I'm affected the game again. Got a goal. How about me next time, Gaffer? Does Forrest have any chance of starting the next game? Or do you think it'll be Mikey Johnstone, Terry? Both having had quite an influential impact on today's proceedings.
Sorry, just replying to the wife there, Bhoycie.
I know that, mate. That's why I extended that by about 20 words, and I was actually just trying to go through every word in the dictionary towards the end.
The fine lines, though. Remember that this goal came off the back of Hart's save. So that ball could very much have ended up in the net. And we're kind of talking about this as a comfortable 3-1 victory now. But it was a very, very fine line. If Stevie May still had all that hair, he might still have scored. I couldn't believe that was him coming on with a shaved head, Stevie May. He's long hair.
Oh, is that the guy with the... I thought I recognised his name.
Stevie May. So it starts with Joe Hart clawing that ball out.
I'm going to Turkey tomorrow. Fuck that. If that's actually what happens, fuck that, man.
Well, anyway, so part of me actually wanted Mikey Johnstone to try and go on and score himself. I wanted to see. I don't get me wrong. I don't think Mikey Johnstone's the answer to any question, but I think he's a confidence player. And if he's going to be utilised between now and the end of the season, I would like him to be doing that from a position of where he's a confident Mikey Johnstone and not the Mikey Johnstone that's coming on and there are groans from the home support whenever he's being substituted on. That can't be great for any player's confidence. I think he done the right thing in passing the ball to Forrest down. And was there any doubt that Forrest was ever going to finish that? Absolutely not.
The weirdest bit about it was, I think even Crocker, I don't know if you remember, I think he kind of led us there with the commentary as well. He said Celtic are going to finish it off here by the time the ball got past. Who'd give the assist to Forrest?
Johnson.
Was it Johnson?
It was a Water.
That's what I thought.
O was on the ground and held it up, and then a Water's the one that made the Lumbus.
That's what I thought it was.
I'm talking nonsense then. I thought it was Johnson. I'm talking nonsense.
For that, Terry. I was like,
sorry about that.
Don't worry.
I thought it was Johnson. No. Anyway, But when it got to Forest, my dad was off his seat. He knew it was 3-0. He had the coat on, 3-1. As soon as it landed at Forest's feet, he knew it was in the net. I thought it was Johnson. Anyway, Iwata then that makes it a different conversation because
he's another one.
He only got a few minutes, and he made a contribution the last time he got a few minutes. He made contributions most time he's got a few minutes, but we could be sitting here, and the next time we see him could be January, which again adds to that midfield cocktail of players who just seem to get. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason to when they get picked, why they get picked, what they do, and what happens in the next game. Iwata has to be one that we haven't. We have to be sitting here thinking we've seen enough of this guy to know that he's a good player, but we've not seen enough of him for him to be making a proper contribution to this team. He is a weird one.
I don't get it with Iwata. Before I come on to him, I'll just quickly address Mark Lee says, agree with most things you say, Bhoycie. Really? I don't agree with most things I say.
That's a good start.
He says, no way would I have Forrest as a starter. He's a player of chances. Just to be clear, I wasn't advocating for Forrest to start. I was just suggesting that if I'd scored another crucial goal, would I be then chapping the door? And I doubted James Forrest's ability to even chap a door hard. But no, I'm not advocating for Forrest.
I think what you're saying, Bhoycie, is Yang started today. Yang started last week. Yang's done nothing in the last 2 games.
So they've got every right to be asking the question, but
he shouldn't be starting the next game.
I'm not saying should James Forrest start. No, I want to be clear on that. Anyway, before I get a bad reputation, remember I've got a penthouse right now. You know, my reputation's fucking soaring at this moment in time, thanks to Terry. Without people saying I'm campaigning for James Forrest to start. Do me a favour, Mark. Help me out, pal. Anyway, right, back to what you were saying there about, what the fuck did you say?
Who?
You said Iwata. Iwata is a very weird one.
Yeah.
So when it comes to Iwata,
Tomoki is the next to be known.
What?
Tomoki as he's now known.
Oh, does he prefer Tomoki? Right, okay, or Tomoki. That's because Brendan can say it better.
Whenever the team sheets put out Tomoki is what they put on the team sheets. Instead of Iwata, they just put Tomoki as first name,
Big Tomoki. What a legend. Right, Tomoki. I mean, he came with one of the highest reputations of the lot from the J League. He was the current at the time J League Player of the Year. Am I right?
That's correct.
Yep. And he was meant to be one that obviously I think Ange had worked for before. And the beauty of Tomoki's arrival was, unlike Maeda and Hatate, he was going to get the bedding in process that often the Japanese players before didn't get, because they essentially were needs must at the time. But the Iwata was going to get this kind of benefit of, you've got 5 months to bed in and then you're going to be key. It's just not happened. I thought he would have been used more based on the performances he's put in so far. I don't think he's done much wrong. I'm not sure, though. I'm not sure that Brendan fancies him for whatever reason. I can't put my finger on why, because, to be honest with you, him being the holding midfielder and then say you just stick with O'Reilly but play Callum one up, because Callum's going to play right, whether I want it or not, or whether I would like him to be rested more often, I think would be the best way to put it. But he won't be, right? He won't be. So you've got to fit him in. But Iwata being the deepest one, I don't think that would be the worst idea, because I think he does try to be more progressive with the ball. He definitely wants to be head up, forward passing. There seems to be a bit more impetus with him, and he doesn't really seem feel like he's had a fair crack of the whip.
I'd agree with that. I don't think I'm the only fan that, 11 months into Iwata's tenure at Celtic, I still don't feel that I know enough about him and his style of play to really make a judgment, which is a bit sad, really. I say we're coming up to a year, because the chances have been limited. When he did get a run in the team last season at the tail end, he was playing at centre-back. And I think a lot of fans made their mind up that he's not good enough. But that was that day
right,
where he got absolutely shithoused off of Curtis May and St Mirren, who just bullied him that day. But when he's played and he's came on in his actual position in the middle of the park, I think he's looked very accomplished. There was the cup final last season against Rangers where they got it back to 2-1 for that last half hour, and we were kind of camped in and under the cosh. And he came on in his natural position, deep at the bottom of the midfield, and I felt he was very, very good. I felt he held the game together pretty well. So when he's coming on a high pressure situation like that against Rangers in a cup final, and he's able to, just come on and be seamless, then it shows you he's definitely got something. Today, brilliant contribution with that, obviously, lung-busting run, which, again, being a defensive midfielder, you wouldn't expect him to have that in him, but no, did absolutely brilliant. And the goal that he scored at Tynecastle, but then he just disappeared into the abyss after that. And it's like, O had like 3 shots at it and kept miss-kicking it, and then just came back to a water. He just pinged it right in the top corner. But yeah, after that great moment, he just disappeared, and then it's like, well, what does this guy have to do? But we'll talk about it again. We'll talk about the midfield, musical chairs that's going on. This morning, me and David and Regan were saying that, like, the way they're just getting rotated around, and even Hatate at the start of the season didn't even seem to be cut and dry that he was in the team, which was bizarre. Because remember at the start, there was a whole narrative about Brendan had told him or whatever at a team meeting or something that he had to, to fit into his style, he'd have to change stuff. And then when he did get a game, he got injured really quickly, and he's had a very stop-start season. So that midfield jersey does seem to be a bit up for grabs, and you'd like to think that if Iwata gets a chance, we could see something out, because it's every time he has come on, he is done right. But something that was mentioned earlier on, which would he fall into that same category of a guy when he comes on, he looks good, but when he starts a game, it kind of bypasses him. Let's say Bernardo earlier on, anyone that's basically come in to replace Hatate with this injury at the moment hasn't made that shot their own, and I hope Iwata wouldn't be in the same category of he finally does get a start and the game just bypasses him. That would be my worry. It just seems to be something weird about that one jersey in particular, that nobody can just make it their own.
Yeah, it's interesting as well. It's almost like you don't get a goal or an assist, and you just sort of you've had a shiter.
You're right.
It's a 6 out of 10. It's like, fucking hell, man. It's a tough school these days. Sometimes the cogs in the wheel can be, very important as well. Do you know what I mean? We've seen that with so many players throughout the years that might not be getting the headlines, but were crucial parts of how the team dynamic works. Terry, any other talking points for you before we wrap up?
Probably just Bernardo, Bhoycie. We had high hopes of this lad because of
Jota.
The success of the last deal. Yeah, exactly that. The success of the last deal that we've done with Benfica. But if you look at Jota and Carter Vickers, it became apparent very, very early in those deals that they were proper players that we would want to make permanent. You've got to make a decision on Paulo Bernardo today. Do we sign him? Yes or no? No from me.
Well, it's not going to be a yes. No, it's definitely.
No, it's not going. It's never going to be yes. But it's probably the thing I'm still thinking about is why is this guy playing in the Champions League and not playing in the SPL? I'm lost. I'm lost on that one. Do you think there could be a clause in the deal? Would we have signed up to something like that?
No, I disagree with that. I
genuinely don't think we would. But it is strange that he comes in for the Champions League games and then is out again for the SPL.
I think that's overcomplicating it as well. See, if you think the player's a good player, then back him to do well against all sorts of various competitions. It's almost like they've been trying to overprotect him from the domestic madness, and maybe he's not physical enough to handle it. And I just think, you should be trying it out a wee bit more. Like, what if you think he can do a job? And by the way, he did do okay in spells in Europe this year. Okay. But I don't understand why you would trust him in these environments and then not trust him away.
It's a weird one. It is a weird one, isn't it?
The only domestic game he started, I think, is the Hibs draw at Easter Road. I think that's all when he started. Other than that, it's been fleeting substitute appearances.
Wow.
Last one then. Do we sign a goalkeeper in January? I go yes.
Yep.
Yes.
But it depends on the quality available.
Yes. Aye. And if somebody can at least push them, Terry, just somebody to just give them a bit of competition, because complacency says...
This is the problem.
No. I think we'll sign an upgrade on an 18-month loan.
No. My microphone came out.
You were that angry about that point.
I was that angry. I'm
That
like Brendan
angry.
at full time.
I
I don't see there's no benefit to competition anymore. We've got
needs
to
to be
go
better,
set the
that's
stall out and get a first team goalie in. My problem would be, I think January would be a tougher market to go get one in than what the previous summer or next summer would be. But there is someone to come in and do a Seagrist again. Fuck that. Just nah, man.
Yeah.
Like it's got, and see when you hear about players coming in that are there to sort of bring in competition, that's a Celtic signing. I want a Brendan Rodgers signing, and I think it's tight. I think the fans deserve to see what this manager's got planned for the team. We've seen he's had his 6 months sort of introductory spell, which incidentally had massive games of consequence, like League Cup exits, Champions League, European exits as well. But we'll just we'll trial and error on that one, which fucks me off. But notwithstanding that, now we get to January, you've got to now go, right, let's see what you're going to bring to the party then, Brendan. What is it you think? Well, let's see it then. You've got you now. There is no excuse time-wise. There's no excuse financially. Celtic can't go out and support you. Or are you Brendan Light? And my hunch now is, to be honest with you, based on I found the summer a far more attractive proposition to be strengthening those 3 or 4 first-team areas that he claims he identified back then anyway. I think we look at it. We've got to say that the chances of this January being as exciting as what we would like it to be is extremely unlikely. That is why we always have to keep our eyes on the board. Thanks for joining us on P.M.P. Hour and 60 minutes. That was great fun. Cheers for Phil for coming on mediating between me and that toe rag below. Enjoyed it, lads. Anyway, enjoy the rest of your Sunday. See you all later.